everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Boston Greeks podcast. I'm Ari, and with me is my co-host, Fotios Stamos. Hello, Fotios.
So Ari,
How are you doing?
I'm doing well now that we're going to have this great interview with another exciting guest on the Boston Greeks
Very
podcast.
nice. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about our guest and then bring her on?
So before we get into it, Ari, as you know, representatives of our community, our Greek American community in Boston, we're all about bringing us together. We're all about celebrating and highlighting individuals that are making strides and have an impact on our culture. And what a better guest to have on this episode for someone that actually took the initiative to, despite all the challenges that we're facing in today's world and society, to bring us together through an idea that she thought that, something, maybe she had an epiphany that she'll tell us about in this interview. But before I get into too much detail, I want to invite our guest. Welcome to the show, Panayiota Asimacos, or Asimacos, who is the founder of the Hellenic Boston Businesses Unite, which for me was striking when I heard it. And I said to myself, I need to find out more about what this is. Welcome to the show, Panayiota. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your personal busy schedule, because you've got a lot going on other than this HBBU program. So without further ado, Panayiota, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored. I've seen a few of the episodes, and it's pretty exciting and at the same time a little surreal. My busy schedule, as you said, is I'm a teacher by day. I'm a mom 24/7 to an amazing teenager. And then I started this little organization last March in my kitchen.
Because you didn't have anything else to do, right?
I had nothing else to do. I was just bored out of my mind.
So Panayiota, before we get into what you're doing, give us a little bit about, you as a Greek American, where you grew up, what was your journey as a Greek American from your childhood to today, so that our audience can get to know a little bit more about Panayiota before this great organization that you launched.
So I grew up in Belmont, Massachusetts. I went to school my entire life in Belmont, and growing up, it was completely Greek all the way. It was more Greek than American. The American culture I came into when I went to school or when I went to my ballet classes. But other than that, my parents, especially my mom, who was born in Volos, God rest her soul, made sure that her daughters were being raised in the most Greek way possible in the United States. We went to the dances at church. We were at church every Sunday. We were at Sunday school. We were at Greek school. When Greek school ended, we had private tutors because we needed to go as high as we could go in the Greek language. We did all the traditional things that you would do in my mother's village, but we did it on Belmont Hill, in a very lovely environment that my dad, God rest his soul, provided for us. And it was just amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better childhood growing up in America, but within a little part of Greece, if I can say that. And the church especially, I had the most amazing experience growing up in the church in Watertown, Taxiarchae Church, under Father Metaxas, as many people know.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, he was an amazing man, God rest his soul. And when my father passed, he became somewhat of an adoptive father, if that makes sense. He came to check on our family. He took care of us like his own children for a good period of time after my dad died. And I couldn't ask for more growing up in that type of environment, the community, and the way my parents made me realize that, yes, we were fortunate to have an amazing life and an amazing home, but at the end of the day, you always have to remember the other person, and the other person may not be as fortunate as you. So you always give back. And my dad especially was the kind who gave without wanting any recognition. He made donations to the church, didn't want anyone to know about it, whether it was monetary, whether it was flowers, nothing. And I grew up in such a surreal kind of some people think a gilded cage that was kind of a fantasy, but at the same time, I'm doing the same for my son now, the way I was raised. I started taking him to church when he was just a baby in my arms. He started going to Greek school. He became an altar boy as soon as he was old enough to become an altar boy. He's religiously going to church every Sunday with me. He's part of the Metropolis of Boston camp, which is one of the charities that I'm helping. And it's an amazing thing to be in the Greek community in America, because I feel that we're so strong when we unite. Whereas in Greece, forgive me for saying this, I lived there for 6 years. The Greeks don't have that strength. There's no unity.
Yeah, I think to what you just mentioned, Panayota, I think we have developed our own subculture. Like
Yes,
we are, woven from the our parents' influence in our upbringing, plus adapting to our surroundings in the US with our friends going to school, television, watching different shows and sitcoms and developing a different perspective about the environment that we live in. But what always weighed more was the influence of our parents and how involved they were to make sure that we, number one, speak the language at home, right? I remember when I was a kid, when we were home and we were talking with my brother and sister, my mom kept saying, Tiles, Elnica, Sospiti,
panda.
right? And when we spoke to our parents in English, they would not answer. They're like, to
Yeah,
push us to speak the language, going to Sunday school and going to church and being schlepped to Greek school after a long day, where other kids used to go play ball in the play yard or go to do other activities. We had to go to Greek school. And as much as it was a burden in our head, there was a reason behind it. And you are a testament to what you're doing to your son of what our parents did, because if we don't make these initiatives to push our children, then where would we be as Greek Americans as far as our culture goes?
sachafume, we're going to get lost. That's what's going to happen.
And it's inevitable.
Yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, it's very sad to see that some communities, because I do see it, are slowly disappearing. Because as adults and parents, for those of us who are parents, it's our number one responsibility to keep the heritage and the culture going. Because if we don't, what's going to become of us here in America?
Right. And this is a very debatable, and I'm sure Ari can chime in, but when we assimilate our families with our children in today's society, our children are going to interact with a lot of non-Greek, friends and
Absolutely.
so forth. They're going to be influenced by their friends. They're going to want to do non-Greek activities because they want to feel, included. They don't want to be the outsiders. And we have to be mindful of that we have to find it within ourselves to find the opportunities to say, okay, yes, you can definitely do things with your friends, but let's not forget who we are. And let's not forget about the fact that we should participate in, church dances, Pimata, the Metropolis camp, going to Greece in the summer, blah, blah, blah.
Okay,
right?
let me chime in. The statistically, these kids aren't even like able to grow up the way we did, because statistically we had a bigger crowd of first generation, second generation. Our parents who are immigrants had a very strong bond. These types of things create an environment for us that I really don't think my kids, your kids, Panayota's kids are. I mean, they'll see like elements of it, but I don't think it's even possible to grow up the way we did. I mean, there may be places that I'm unaware of that have like that strong Greek community, but I know all around Boston and now that I live in DC,
I agree with
we
you.
become so assimilated into the American culture. It's kind of like when there was a huge wave of Italians coming here in the 20s and, before the Greek wave, there was the Italian wave. And by now, the Italians are so assimilated into the culture, it's like they don't have that bond. We had that in the 80s, 90s, even the early 2000s. And now I feel like it's just so difficult. So having a guest like Panayota on the show who is actually doing stuff to kind of keep that alive is a very special treat for me, especially just to hear that vibe that I used to have. And she sounds like she has it, and she's passing it on to her kid. So that's great.
I'm super
Absolutely.
passionate about it. You have no idea. And part of it comes, I'm going to say a large part from my parents. And I couldn't be more grateful as much as
Were your parents first generation immigrants?
So my father grew up in Somerville, as you did. And he was second generation. My mother was first. She came here. So I had the best of both worlds. I had my Greek American dad and I had my Greek 100% mom. So when she would be a little too strict, dad would balance her off. I was not allowed to date during high school. It was completely forbidden. My mother didn't even want me to go to prom, and my dad had to go to bat for me for prom.
Way to go, Dad. Way to go, Dad.
But for me, I think it came when I saw Alex. He was like 5 or 6 and he's doing the sports and he's hanging out with the Americanakya. There was a couple Greek friends, but I'm like, I got to do something. Like, we were going to church religiously, but I knew that when he reached that point, preteen, teen, that's when you've got to bring the kid in. That's when you have to go the next level. That's when you say, you know what, Alex, there's Goya. You know what, Alex, there's NBC camp. Because I will tell you, once he started going to the camp, 4 years, it's almost now they're with the camp, that's when it just all came together. Wow. And yeah, is it hard for me? Absolutely. Do I necessarily like to wake up at the break of dawn on a Saturday morning to take him to a camp for 2.5 days and then I have to go back to get him? No, it's not my first thing I want to do. But do I absolutely 100% look forward to it, because I know my child is on cloud 9 when he gets there and he's with all the Greek Orthodox kids. And he's got a community of kids where they're on a Snapchat and all year long they communicate with one another and they've built their little group. Is worth it.
Priceless.
So that's exactly to my point where I'm saying, like, I don't see it now, but people like you, Panayiota, you find ways to keep that whole element of how we grew up alive in your child. And I think that's super cool. And the fact that you put in that effort is awesome.
I don't want you to think that I'm the only one. There are others like me. I've seen them at the camp. I see them at the church, but they're very few that, kind of take it the next level. And I understand why. We all have responsibilities. We have work, we have relationships, we have this, we have that. But we have to remember how important it is that if we all don't go the extra mile, and it doesn't take one of us, it doesn't take 2 of us, it's got to keep growing. Because if it doesn't, like you said, it's just going to slowly wither away. And we just can't do that. For God's sakes, Greece is the birthplace of almost everything. If you look at history,
So I'm gonna go back to the statistics again. What do you think the chances are that your child will marry a Greek?
You're talking to someone who always sees silver linings, and when you tell me statistics, it kind of just goes over my head.
Well, I'm just saying, like, so I married a Greek, Foti married a Greek, but a lot of my friends didn't marry Greeks. And then I think of my kids, and when they get to the marriage age, I'm like, what are the chances they're gonna even have a bunch of people that they date that are Greek, not to mention finding the one that they're gonna marry?
I'm gonna say with certainty and 99.9%, but of course it's God's will, that Alexandros will definitely end up with a Greek woman.
I love it.
You see it in him. You see it that he has a passion for the culture. Like, whenever I was dating in college, if it was a non-Greek, I never took it as something that was going to be like real. It was just like having fun in college. And every time I dated a Greek girl, then I was like, well, this is there's just so much about the culture. Like, I couldn't be with a non-Greek girl. I just couldn't.
So, Pesmu, though, it's because your parents were like that in the house, correct? Well, that's what I'm like in our home. Στη cucina mesa, I have the typical, mexicones with the I have everything. In Alex's room, he has Saint Alexander above his bed. He says his prayers every night. He kisses the icon above his bed every night. Anavmatokadili when we need to. Every holiday, we make the typical Greek foods. You know, when it was my mother's memorial service, we made sitari sto spiti about a month ago. He sees everything as you would see it in a Greek village, but in a home in America. And I think that, you know, there's many of us who do this. I just think that what was missing, and this is why I started HBBU, is the way that we can all get together as adults, professional Greeks living in Boston, New England, come together, communicate, network, become friends, because I really want it to be like a family type of thing. Because when you think of Greece and Greeks, old school, you know?
So this is a good segue. You met. Do you want to say something, Foti?
No, go ahead. I'm gonna follow what you.
I was just going to say, you mentioned HBBU, so I think this is like a perfect segue into let us know. I mean, I'm very well aware of it because I've spoken to people who are part of it. I see stuff on social media. I think it's amazing. I think it's great. I think it's necessary. I think that, you know, everybody who is a business owner should attend this.
Right.
But please, in your words, tell us, how did that happen? How did you lead into doing this, and what is it all about?
Did Foti want to say something?
Yeah, before Panayota gets into this, Panayota made a couple key points about how we used to be, right? And if you look back and reflect on how we grew up outside of the family, but let's talk about as a community, right? So years ago, during our youth, there was a lot of activity that brought us together. We had plenty of opportunities in our time where we got together through outside of festivals, of course. We used to attend many festivals, but there were also events that happened throughout the year. There were so many societies that were hosting annual gatherings, annual dances that we used to attend as groups.
Yeah.
There was plenty of Greek nights, tons of Greek nights. There was plenty of Greek concerts throughout the years. So we had many, many opportunities to get together and be as, you know, groups, whether it was part of the church or as part of our culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, those happenings started to slowly lessen. There was less things to go out to, less things to attend. And when they were happening, most of us in general didn't have the time to attend. So we started to see the I don't know, Ari, if the word downfall is the proper word to use, but we started to see the
Deterioration?
decline, right?
Decline
So
is the word.
there couldn't have been a better time or timing on Panayota's part to say, hey, you know what? We're not getting together as much as we used to, but at the same token, there's plenty of us who are very successful in our respected fields. We are doing great things outside of our community that maybe this is where I think, and Panayota is going to tell us, where the idea of HBBU came from. So having said that, I just wanted to kind of chime in. You know, I always like to give my 2 cents.
You gave like 5 cents at least. But the segue into HBBU is so you said a lot of good stuff, Foti, but first keep all those thoughts that Foti said in mind, but let Panayota explain to us the deals, just in case some of the people out there haven't heard or aren't aware, so they're familiar, and then everything you said actually means a lot, Foti. So go ahead.
Last year, right before Christmas, one of my parish members, who's a dear friend as well, Costa, approached me and said that I've been nominated to become a member of the parish council. And I said, what are you talking about? And I said, I never asked to do that. And he's like, Panayiota, people see you in church. People, you know, notice this, notice that. You've been nominated. I said, okay. I was elected. And I'm like, okay. And it was probably one of the best things to ever happen to me because I came together with a group of council members who everyone brings something different to the table. We're very different backgrounds, but we are all united to do good for the church. And it was last March, March 3rd. It was a Friday night. I'll never forget it. We had gotten an email from our secretary, Irini, about donations for Sunday church hour, coffee hour, excuse me, that there were no memorial services. So we needed to get some things for coffee hour. And one parish council member said, oh, I'll bring something in. Another parish council member said, oh, I'll bake something. And I just saw everyone coming together. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And it just took one email with one little request, and we all rallied. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can get some stuff from some business owners that I know. So I called my friend Sophia, who has Sophia's Pantry in Belmont, and I explained the situation to Sophia, and she said, "Ne pedimos." She says, "Para turekia, slice them up and they'll fill trays." And I said, "Okay, perfect." And then I called another gentleman who is Greek, who has My Other Kitchen in Belmont, which is a lovely little teeny restaurant, but his food is amazing. And I've tasted it firsthand. And I introduced myself over the phone. I said, Yorgo, you don't know me, but I've come in many times. And we have a little situation at our church, Taxiarchae. He says, oh, I know Taxiarchae well. He says, what do you need? And I said, well, I got something sweet, so maybe something salty. And he says, what are you thinking about? I'm like, I don't know. Your spanakopithas are really good. And he says, how many do you want? I said, how many can you give me? And he says, 75. And I said, great.
Wow.
And I sat with such an amazing feeling that it just took 2 phone calls. And it just took, being honest and open and asking nicely with love and kindness. And these wonderful Greek business owners came and asked nothing in return, 0. So I picked up the tureke, which were fresh. Sunday morning, God bless George, he made those spanakopithas fresh for me Sunday morning, and they were hot on the platters, ready to go for church.
I don't want to change the subject, but Panayiota, can you work for us, please? Is that a possibility? Because you sound like you get stuff done, and I like that.
You know what? Again, it's something I've learned from my parents, but especially my dad. You have a goal, you go for it. You don't let anyone stop you. And you just believe in God above. He's going to give you the strength and the courage, and you're going to get it done. So that being said, that night I sat in the house and I kept thinking about it and how wonderful Sophia and Yorgo and my parish council members were. And I said, you know what? This could actually go bigger. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I thought of the name. Hellenic obviously is out there for everybody. But then I thought of the businesses, and then I thought about people coming together. And then I thought about Boston. So I Google Hellenic Boston Businesses Unite just to see, is it out there? Does it exist? And it didn't. So right then and there, I bought the URL that night. Mm-hmm. And then I just had a feeling, okay, so at least I have the name, and then everything else will follow. So then I decided to ask a couple great people that I know to be board members, quote unquote. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I had this awesome idea. And I Googled, Hellenic initiative, and I Googled some other big, things around the country to get my data and do my research of who I need and what I need to do and how I need to file 501c3, and I need an attorney, blah, 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 blah. And I formed a board, and we started planning for our launch event. And the idea was very simple. The idea was philotimo is our code. Honor, doing good, wanting nothing in return, absolutely zero. And just bringing all the Greeks together, business professionals as well, to kind of unite, to network with one another, to help with another out, to become friends, but in the end, to do good for our kids. Mm-hmm. So MBC is very close to us, my son and I. It's their family. Mm-hmm. I can't say enough about everyone in that metropolis of Boston camp umbrella. I just can't. And there was another organization that just kind of fell into my lap, which is the Sotir Center in Thessaloniki, Greece, which is a center for children of various ages who have disabilities.
Oh, very nice.
And I came into contact with one of the employees, and she and I have been speaking, and she was more than happy to, have us work with her. And it's come to a point where our launch event happened in June. Then we just had another event at Bar Vlacha a few weeks ago, I think. And it's just become something that I'm on cloud nine about.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just can't. I'm on cloud nine.
Well, we said it before. This sounds like it's very needed by our culture. It's cool because, when you're young, there's all sorts of stuff you could do but when you get older and you run a business and you have responsibilities and you have family, you can't get that connection outside of your small little social circle. And this is perfect for that. I'm just thinking of myself. Forget being big minded. I'm just thinking of me. And this sounds like something that's so cool to be part of, and to kind of just to know that it exists.
It warrants itself because, not to cut you off, Panayiota, but there's so many of us that are in so many different fields and so many different practices and so many different entrepreneurs, business owners, those that are in government, those that are in medicine, those that are in finance,
There's no lack of Greek professionals.
Right?
I mean, there's no lack.
There is no lack.
Time than to bring us together now, right? As far as take us back 20 years ago, I think our generation was, we were all studying because our parents were pushing us to get out of the food service industry or whatever retail industry, or the laundromat and the dry cleaning business and so on and so on. And so here we are, fast forward 20 years, we are the success of what our parents had instilled in us, and we are great in our personal lives and our personal professions. But for our culture now, here you are, Panayiota, saying, hey, now that we have this strength, the abilities, the resources, the networks, why don't we come together?
Yeah. I think
another quick thought is that I just had listening to you guys is that, so when we had a big migration over here and it was a tight group, we get it. They were immigrants. They all stuck together. They all formed communities. They all were part of the church. Everybody was tight. Now we're talking about the kids of these immigrants are now branching out and becoming professionals, becoming business owners, entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, what have you. So that is the American culture tugging at them and taking their time. So what do we need? An organization like yours, Panayiota, which is going to kind of tug them back in a little bit into what they know, what their, the origins were, and that kind of community that we had when we were younger. So as much as these professionals are getting assimilated into our American culture, this is the type of stuff we need. We need this to kind of reel people back in, or don't let them forget where they came from, or don't let them forget what their culture and community is. And I think it's just a great concept, great idea, and great execution.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really do.
Why don't you tell us, Panayiota, a couple of things. One is, what's in store for HBBU? What do you got going on, and how do we get involved?
So we just got over the second event, and every time, I have a goal and I reach it, I'm like, okay, what's the next one? I want to do more now. Because we raised a certain amount, and I was able to give a check so we had our event on Thursday. That Saturday morning, the long weekend for Columbus Day, I dropped Alex off at camp, and I was able to give a check to Panos Koufos right then and there, the director, who came to our event and spoke and thanked us for, sponsoring or donating to the camp, because that particular night at Bar Vlacha was especially for NBC. So gave him a check, and the feeling of helping, and right now it's small, but it's still something, and you've got to start somewhere.
Right.
So now our next big thing is coming up February 3rd, and it's going to be at the Oakley Country Club, and we're calling it the Winter White event.
Oh, cool.
Where it's going to be a little more formal. We're going to have Salonica Boys as a DJ. It's a time, the holidays are over, but it's still winter, so let's celebrate. And we want to do it on a more kind of formal setting, because I remember going to formal stuff like that, and I liked getting dressed up. So why shouldn't we all do that again, San Elinas, and not just for New Year's? And this is for the kids. So for this event, we'd be splitting the proceeds between MBC, because it's on a larger level, and Sotir Center for Kids with Disabilities in Thessaloniki, Greece. And I'm looking to do events quarterly, but I also want to set things up, mixers or get-togethers, either monthly or bi-monthly, because I think quarterly isn't enough. Quarterly, we can do bigger things, but for example, Foti and I were talking about Greek night, and hopefully by the end of November, even though it's right after Thanksgiving, we can do a Greek night at Foti's restaurant, where we'll say it's HBBU, reserve your table online, and it's for all of us to get together in an amazing setting to celebrate Greeks being together, to celebrate our heritage, our culture, how far we all have come. And it doesn't matter, what your social status is. Some say I'm a very humble teacher. I love kids, and I chose what I wanted because I love what I do. I was BC going into law school, took a year off, worked at a firm. It's not that I didn't love it. I just didn't have the passion for it. I taught Sunday school. I loved my kids at Taxiarchae Church. So then I went to BU and I got my master's in education. We're all successful in different ways, and success isn't just determined in your monetary value.
Agreed.
But that being said, we all have to come together to help the kids who are our future.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Very well said. Very well said. So I'm gonna pull a maneuver out of the Taxiarchae playbook. Fati, we should nominate her to do stuff with us, because she gets stuff done. She has passion. She has execution, which if you follow the podcast, I always talk about execution. Ideas, there's lots of ideas out there. People could come up with ideas. Fati and I come up with ideas on a daily basis. None of that means anything if you can't execute. And I'm sure people have talked about making organizations or getting together and doing all that stuff. But you know what, Panayiota? You executed it, you put in the work, and you made it happen. And that's, again, very commendable.
Thank you.
Admirable.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we talked about, we want to definitely support, be a part of it. I know that at some point you're going to roll out information about membership, but what about how can those that are listening find out more about the organization?
So for those of you that are listening, and for everyone, we have a very rudimentary website set up. Myself and my vice president, Chris Salamanis Rivera, set this up on our own with Nikitas, his guidelines. And it's super simple. Say it again.
That handsome guy that runs marathons.
That handsome guy that runs marathons. Yes. And late at night, we kind of tweaked this on Wix, tweaked that, because obviously it's free, like some base little pay that you do to set it all up. And we've got our story, which I wrote, so everyone can understand exactly where this came from and why I did it and the passion I have for it. We have a little information about the philanthropic organizations that we are connected with, which is Metropolis of Boston Camp and Sotir. There is some information as well about future events. So right now there's nothing up there because I haven't loaded our next event up there. And we are in the process of, because now I'm in the position where I can hire someone to vamp up the site. because once the year closes for us, which is going to be March of 2024, and once people understand that, you know what, this is a real thing, because of course you hear something, we're in America, you hear something, you're like, really, is that really true? Is she really doing this with nothing in return?
So, with Panayiota, you're a nonprofit?
Yep, nonprofit.
Okay, so I'm gonna say this, and I'm saying it on the air, so I can't take it back. But if you guys are a nonprofit and you're doing these great things, I'm a web developer and an app designer for 20 years. So just let me know when you need some help or when you need to take the next step, and I'll be there, and I'll basically help you guys do that.
Oh, Adi, I'm gonna cry, dude.
And I mean, sky's the limit. A website is a website, but you could also get a little bit further and do an app where, people can register and get all their stuff. But anyway,
But
it's a cause that we want to be part of. We want to help out in any way we can. And that's what I can do. And hearing you say that you want to take the next step at some point, then I will be there too.
what I can do is advise Ari to do it. So we're here for you.
What I have an angle to this. I want to make your website so I could just put a picture of Foti and say no Fotis allowed in the HBBU.
If you do this for me, you can do anything that's appropriate.
No Fotis allowed, except for the good Fotis.
You can do anything that's appropriate on the website.
Well, this is all joking aside, Panayiota, this is fascinating in the sense that it took someone who actually had the same upbringing as most of us that are listening. We've all shared the same or similar experiences growing up as Greek Americans. And we've always had that in the back of our minds, like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen when we take it to the next step. We get married, we have kids. We're watching our kids grow up in a different environment. And we're like, oh, it's not the same for them as it is for us. And then here we are as Greek Americans pursuing non-Greek initiatives, non-Greek business ventures, and doing well and so forth. And then we take a step back and, sometimes I get asked, or someone sees me like, oh, when's the last time you were at church? Or when's the last time you went to the festival? When's the last time you did this? And we take a step back like, wow, you know what? If we don't really take a moment to say, I really got to change it up. Here you come and we get introduced to you about what you're doing, and it's thanks to people like you that makes us think twice. That if we don't make these changes or we don't take these initiatives, that it's going to go away. And thanks to you, you're giving us hope to keep us together. So I want to thank you for this inner light that you have, that you're shedding on all of us as Greek Americans in the Boston and maybe beyond. Who knows, right?
So my dream is that it goes beyond that. I want this to be somewhat of like a virus. It's infectious, like goodness, just pure goodness, people getting together to just enjoy one another, celebrate our culture, celebrate one another's success, whatever that success may be, networking, helping one another out, but raising money for our kids, because MBC runs solely on donations. This other center in Greece, we all know the situation in Greece right now. So Theater Center, I've been talking with this woman, Natasha, and some of the things are not pleasant. And ideally, what I want to do, if it's feasible, is set up an Amazon wish list for Sotir, just like MBC has an Amazon wish list. On the site, let's say you don't want to give us money once you get membership, once we start the membership, you don't want to hit the donate, no problem. Here's Amazon wish list from MBC. Here's the Amazon wish list for the Sotir Center for Children with Disabilities in Thessaloniki, and pick something that you personally want from you to donate, whatever the cost may be. I really don't care. It's just the gesture. And that's how I was raised. It's not what it is. It's the fact that you're taking that time, that you're thinking of another person, and you don't want anything in return other than the feeling that, you know what? I did something good. And now maybe that person will do something good as well.
Well, I'm gonna say again, uh, once I get through with your tech, you'll be able to take donations, you'll be able to be certified, you'll be able to do it all.
Yay, thank you.
Because I mean, this is something that's so cool, and I know Forty 100%, and ever since he was telling me about it, and I started following on social media and everything, I just really do. I want to be behind this because I think it's
Thank you.
something very important.
So as you were saying, and as I started saying, but then I kind of got sidetracked. My vision is HBBU New York, HBBU Chicago, HBBU Miami. It's always going to stay HBBU.
And I can help you in DC.
There you go. Perfect.
Lots of Greeks in DC.
There you go. Perfect. But I want it, ideally, my dream is for it to get to a level where it's just kind of, it's infectious, this idea of philotimo, this idea of doing good for the future, for our kids, for our culture, for the Greek community in the United States, and not letting it just wither away and die off.
Absolutely. We're right there with you, Panayiota. This has been very eye-opening, very inspirational. And I commend you for, the fact that you're dedicating and sacrificing time out of your personal life to make this be a part of other people's initiatives without them even knowing that they should be doing this, right? I think that it's in the back of our minds, not knowingly, but when you put this into perspective, I bet you people say, oh, you know what? That's definitely something that I want to be a part of, because obviously they don't know it yet, but they will after they listen to this episode, that they're going to want to get involved. So I wanted to personally thank you for what you're doing. And I want to continue as long as with Ari as well, to support you in any way that we can. And this is going to be the last time that you're with us on this podcast. We'd love to bring you back as well. But thank you very much, Panayiota, for all that you do. We're excited that you're doing this, and we're excited to get involved at the same token.
Thank you, Forty. Thank you, Ari, as well. It was really nice meeting you, Ari. Forty, I can't thank you enough for everything and the future that you said about Greek night and all that. It's something that, the whole experience to date really humbles me. And I'm just really happy about all of it.
Awesome.
And as well, you should be. So as Forty said, thank you once again, Panayiota, for taking the time. Thank you for doing all that you do. I want to thank my co-host Forty, and I want to thank everybody out there for watching and listening. We will have all the information for HBBU in the notes and in the everywhere you're looking. And if this speaks to you, if it's something that means anything to you, then please reach out. Please attend any events. Just be part of it, and more information is coming, as Panayiota said. So thanks to everybody out there for watching and listening. This was the Boston Greeks podcast, and we will see you all next time.